Welcome to Kites and Strings, the podcast about creativity. My name is Steve Plume. My co-host, Catherine Shinnock, and I are both registered art therapists and licensed clinical professional counselors, in addition to being creatives. In this podcast, we explore creativity, and we especially look at the tension that is often present for those who choose a creative lifestyle. Along the way, we interview fabulous guests who have found their own success living their creative lives. Today, we're talking with New York-based actor Michelle Simone Miller, who has stage, TV, film, and commercial credits. At 11, she appeared on multiple episodes of Rosie O'Donnell, and she was in the off-Broadway production of I Never Saw Another Butterfly. She had a title character role on the episode of MTV's One Bad Choice, a co-star role in CBS's Blue Bloods, and on Showtime's Homeland. Film credits include Winter's Tale and Bomber Jackets, in addition to playing a lead in the sci-fi film Queen Crab. She's been in numerous commercials, plus she produces and hosts the podcast Mentors on the Mic. And although there's some clicking on Michelle's track due to some tech issues, it will become crystal clear in about 75 seconds that Michelle finds multiple joys in grabbing her string and flying her kite. I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle Simone Miller sets you apart from the 84 million other Michelle Millers.
That's exactly right. So my middle name is really Simone. So my full name is Michelle Simone Miller. I had to put in my middle name because and I knew this was going to happen. So I think I started with Michelle Simone Miller early. But when you join the union, you have to join under a specific name. And if there's anyone with that name, you have to change it up, which is why you get like Michael B. Jordan. You know what I mean? He's like, I can't do Michael Jordan because Michael Jordan's already in the SAG. So he probably did Michael B. Jordan.
Interesting. Right. So now if Michael Jordan hadn't been a crossover from basketball into whatever
Space Jam.
Michael B. Jordan would have been in the clear.
Love it. But people do make up weird names, right?
They do. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the stage names are really for, what is it? Like if you don't want your last name, if your last name's all funky or super Jewish probably sounding or super like ethnic sounding, they sometimes want to change that.
Okay.
I think there's an actress that's literally Hannah Simone. I remember thinking like, should I do that? Nah.
Anyways, so I'm really pleased to have you on. Really cool to hear how you're adapting. But I guess before we even get to that, how did all this start? How did you say, damn it, I want to be an actress? And
Ooh, okay. I remember the moment.
Oh.
The moment was around, I don't know the age, 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been in drama classes, I'd been in drama club, and I was so in love with acting. And I remember getting the realization, oh, you can do this as a career? And like I had an inner knowing as this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, what do you think it was in there that grabbed you? What was it?
The part of acting that I always hold on to, that I love, is there's like a flow that happens when you're really fully immersed in whatever you're doing. And you can get it in other things with other art, or you can get it with any other creative pursuit. It's that idea that time kind of flies. You're fully invested in one thing. Your thoughts are kind of off.
Yeah, you're in the zone.
Yeah, you're in the zone. So I always loved that at a young age, performing, but also just being in the sense of play and fun and flow. And there was just this sense of, oh, you could do this as a job. This is a job that people get like paid for. Like, I'm doing this. This is my career. And people thought I'd get out of it, or I'd grow out of it, and I didn't. So.
What people?
Oh, people along the way, man. They'll meet you. They'll be like, "You want to be an actor?" Like it's the same way. It's like, "Oh, you want to be a ballerina? Oh, you want to be a firefighter?" Like all the jobs you kind of want as a kid. I would get that. You're gonna get out of. You're gonna grow out of this.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, "Watch me."
Oh, so that's the thing. That's the fire. Like someone has to tell you can't do something, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to do it times 10.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of that. I mean, I had a lot of people that my mother and I would meet, like kind of quasi like celebrities, and we'd be like, either one of us would ask for advice. Can you give me any advice on how to be an actor, or like how to make it? And they'd always say, do something else.
Interesting. Even actors were telling you not to do this. Did you ever get why they were telling you not to do it?
Yeah, they said it was just too hard and it's not worth it. And they said if there's absolutely nothing else you can do that would give you joy, then do it. You're not really, you're just be depressed either way if you're not. But they said it's so hard and it's not worth the effort. And I kind of understand on the flip side, now that I'm on the other side of it, I get why now. Just, it is a very, can be difficult.
Yeah.
I'm sure. So many people talk about how difficult it is to find a part, to get a part, to have it be sustaining. But if you can't feel joy any other way, it's like you have to do it, or you have to find a way within that field to make it work.
Yeah, it's a weird sort of journey. On one hand, I was always really grateful that I knew what I loved to do. I mean, not everyone has a passion right away. And I always knew I had a passion. From like as early as I can remember, I had a passion for acting. Yeah. So I always felt really grateful growing up that like I knew what I want. Everyone was like, oh, I don't know yet what I want to do. And I was like, I do. I know. Yeah. I already know. So there's a blessing in that I always try to hold on to, that I know something that gives me so much joy. Joy in a way that maybe other people might sometimes not connect to that joy. I always knew how to connect to it, and I felt like that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. How many people do you know who have made it well into their 20s or beyond, not knowing what they want to be when they grow up? Granted, it's a small, informal sample, but I know both Catherine and I have encountered many of these same people in our practices, and many have felt that anything arts-related counters security and making money. If really undecided and not weighed down with said expectations, fine. But I'd take knowing what I want and committing to its pursuit anytime over spending years and or thousands in tuition following the degree of undecided. Or worse yet, something that only provides a perceived sense of security but a full dose of depression. But make no mistake, the arts are hard, and we'll even start with discussing audition, rejection, and coping with the notion that you might look like some random director's ex-girlfriend.
Sounds like your mom was really supportive, but then you've got like people around you that are like, don't do this, don't do this, do this. Even people in the industry. Then you start going on auditions. How do you cope with the repeated rejection?
It depends on the age. I had a different answer for this for different ages.
Let's hear 'em.
So I grew up acting and I did school shows. I was in an off-Broadway show when I was 11. I remember the audition for the original show. So it was the same play, but not the off-Broadway version. So the same play, the first time I auditioned, I got the understudy. And I was so upset. But I went to every rehearsal. I was invested. And then after a few months, they had auditions for the off-Broadway version, and I got the off-Broadway version. So weird how this all works out. But I remember the audition and the callback. I had this idea, like I already know what I'm doing because I went to all the rehearsals for the other show. So I had a sense of like a confidence. I didn't feel as stressed. I remember I got other auditions after that. And some of those I was very nervous for. So there's been some auditions where I felt very confident, and then other auditions where I felt very nervous. And I remember the first few auditions for when I was in elementary school, but I remember my cheeks would shake, like I would like twitch, like it would just be like convulsing, just like really like nervous in front of like 100 and something students. I sort of was fine up until college. I was so great. And then after I graduated, I was now in the real world.
Yeah.
And that was a very difficult transition. I felt like it's like if it was a student film or like a low budget film, my nerves were fine. But once I hit those major TV roles and film roles, I was so nervous for a long time, and I had to really work on that.
Yeah.
I bet. I mean, that's just a hard process. And you started sensing it very young, like this sense of like, okay, people are looking at me and people are judging me. I mean, anybody in the arts, regardless, it's a hard thing.
Yeah, it is.
And then people line up for it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird thing to go through. You are putting out something which can be very creatively vulnerable, like acting and putting yourself in it. And then knowing that people are judging you. They might say, yes, your thing is great. We're going to send it to the director. They might say, no, that I'm not going to bring that person back ever again for this show. I don't like her work. It's a lot of ups and downs, and it's rejection, but also like there's weird things in the business too. Like I've been cut from a film, which is something that happens. I've booked 2 TV shows, and both TV shows, they rescheduled and then canceled my role, which happens too. So there's a lot of like, you got it and then you didn't get it.
Yeah.
So there's just so many levels to the rejection.
I think about like just art in general, and people are going to have opinions on it and people are going to judge it. But like if I have a painting that's in a gallery, I'm probably not going to hear all the judgments about it. But as an actor and going on auditions, it's like immediate, like initially I would imagine your like stockpile of like rejections was like huge compared to the like wins and you got this and your art is great and we love it. It's like,
Yes.
no, we don't like your art.
All of the above.
The other piece is if somebody doesn't like my painting, it doesn't change my schedule next week.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So that idea of like you're planning and you're preparing, it's like, okay, there's going to be some shoots coming up. I'm going to go and do this. And then you get word that they cut the scene and now you've got a week of like, coffee shops, maybe.
Well, what's even crazier is that I try to tell people this, especially newer actors coming in. As an actor, you kind of have to plan your schedule in a way where you get a daily flexible job. You get some sort of either flexible full-time or a series of of side jobs, but you're basically doing all that in service to your career. You want to be an actor, and so you want to have a flexible job or time to audition. And then you pay for classes. Classes are super expensive. You pay for workshops to meet the people in the industry. You want to get that agent, you want to get that manager, that takes a long time. You want to get casting directors to notice you, even if you have an agent or manager, that takes money and time as well. Headshots can be $1,000, and so you have to do them every couple of years usually. There's your website costs, IMDb costs, websites that I submit to where that costs a monthly fee. So it all adds up. You're doing all that in service to your career. If I book this role, I could be paid $1,000 for 3 to 4 hours of work. So not only is it good for my career, it's a lot of money for very little work. And so you're hoping to get that money to then put back in your career so that you make more money.
Yeah.
So it's just so much pressure. And then on top of everything, to get that audition is like a lottery. When you think about the system to book a role, it's so crazy to think about. When a casting director puts out what's called a breakdown, which is, let's say, the description of a role. Hannah, she's this age, she's 25 to 35, she's an assistant, she's going to be recurring. You know, they describe the character. She's headstrong, but she has some insecurities, whatever the description is. You know, they put it out into a service, into a website that actors do not have access to. So agents and managers see that breakdown and submit all the actors that they have on their roster that would fit that. Casting directors get sometimes 1,000 or 2,000 submissions for that one role.
Wow.
And those are only actors that are represented, mind you. And they probably only bring, depending on the part, depending on the casting director, 10 to 30 people per role. So out of 2,000, they're only going to have 10, 20 appointments. So just getting the audition is a big deal. And then out of those 20, 30 people coming in, you want to be the top 6 for that role, because they probably send out 4 to 6, 7, it depends on the person, to the client to decide. So your chances are just slow.
Wow.
If you book it, even one line, that's so huge. It's so hard.
Yeah.
Wow. Why do you want to do this? You just sold me on that is like the least fulfilling career ever. Front a fuck ton of money, have people tell you your art sucks, and the odds of winning are like shittier than Vegas.
Oh yeah, much shittier than Vegas. I will say they don't usually say awful things to your face. I've been very, knock on something, fortunate. I've never really had anyone say anything bad to me or about my work. They won't say anything to, like, I think there's maybe an old conception, of just like, the La La Land thing, that they eat sandwiches and they talk on the phone while you're auditioning. I've never had that. I've had great experiences in the room. They're really nice.
And I'm going to guess that it comes down to the tiniest little things, stupid little details that probably don't mean anything to anybody, but somebody has some idiosyncratic hair up their butt that says they don't want somebody that has, I don't know, this shaped eye or something.
Yeah. Well, so that could be one of them. I've had a casting director once. I forgot to brush my hair. Whatever. I forgot to brush my hair and there was a knot in the back of my head. And I didn't notice that because when I looked at myself in the mirror, I was like, looking good, totally fine. Turned out there was a knot in my hair. At the audition, I had to give some profile shots. And the casting director said to me, is there anything you could do about the knot in your hair? Because she said the client is not going to be imaginative, that you're just going to be able to brush that out later. So something as small as that makes a difference. The other thing I've heard casting directors say is never feel bad you didn't get the role, because the excuses we'll hear are so ridiculous. Like, you look like that person's girlfriend from 10 years ago, so they're not going to want you. They think you look like X, Y, and Z, and that's not who. It's just, they're so small.
So we're going to talk artistry and craft here as we explore creating and possibly nailing a character before bringing them to the audition, and then being able to change or adjust that character if asked to. And in a bit, we're going to talk about what it feels like to be on a set and part of the big machine or organism, or whatever word you want to use for huge, complicated, and synchronous.
Okay, so as an actor, someone gives you the words that you're supposed to say. Someone tells you where to stand, or like how to, maybe not so much, maybe how to move even, depending on what your scene is. So where do you feel like your creativity, how does your creativity show up when you're given so much information on how to be this person?
That's a good question. It shows up in a couple different ways. One is the preparation, because the preparation is all you. You come in and you think, this is what I've developed in my character. I know this about them. I think this is the choice they're going to make in this type of situation. You build that even before you go into the audition. By the time you go to the audition, you want to be as close to set ready as possible. You know what I mean? You want to have everything down on your end. Then they give you adjustments, and they might say, hey, you didn't know this, but actually you kill the person in the end. So you're like, oh, that changes things. I didn't know that. So then all of a sudden you have to add that to the original story and be creative about what that means for you and the choices you make in the scene, knowing that that's what's going to happen. Also, sometimes, and I don't know if you guys feel this way, in creative pursuits, sometimes if you do have parameters, it makes it more exciting because you have to come up with more stuff within the parameters.
That's come up in so many interviews when we talk
really?
In so many different art forms, like that box.
People like the box.
People like the box. People like the deadlines. People like the parameters of just like what am I supposed to do with the given things that I have? How can I be creative during that?
They give you the skeleton, right? And you get to flesh it out. And you get to flesh out the backstory for this individual. And you get to, and my thinking too, and correct me if I'm wrong here, it's almost like I think of the old-timey roulette, or not roulette, but the what do you call them? Blackjack.
What are you talking
the slot machine? Slot machine.
Right. Slot machine. The universal signal for slot machine is the arm pull.
Slot machine, arm pull. You may come up with an idea that fleshes out this individual, and you might be spot on and you may do that perfectly, but director or somebody has sort of a different idea and it just doesn't match up with what you bring to the table. Is that kind of how it happens? Like if your interpretation of that individual isn't matching, do they say, well, no, we're seeing this person more like this, and then you get to adjust?
So usually in the audition, that's what that time is for. So the casting director will be like, I just spoke to the client, or maybe they'll bring you in for a callback. They'll be like, we love your work.
Okay.
This is what we're thinking. We think you can get there, but we want to try it out before you even get to set. So really, by the time you get to set, they've already kind of decided you just do the same thing on the day of.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It has to be completely fleshed out. You are a full character. She probably has it. We'll just send her in.
Wow.
Oh.
And I'm guessing too, going back a step, out of the 2,000 submissions, I'm sure there's all sorts of theories about how to make yours rise to the top.
Yeah.
right? And everybody has a sense of like, you have to do it this, or you have to use this font, and you have to whatever.
Oh no, none of that it's all the same font. It's through the same website. So all they see, no joke, they see a thumbnail of your picture and that's it.
They don't even see you acting?
No, it's because if you're going to get 2,000, they can click on you. They can click on the picture and maybe see your work.
Okay.
So some people do. Some of them have
So it's
said,
like
I
swipe
see your
left,
work.
swipe right.
Oh yeah, do you look like what we think this role would be? Which is ridiculous because they don't know sometimes.
That's so interesting. And so do you find then that when you go on an audition, do you get to see the other people who are auditioning, like when non-COVID?
Occasionally they'll have similar appointment times, but they usually try to stagger the appointment times. So you'll see maybe a couple people.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, no. Occasionally I'll go to auditions and they'll be like, you could see there's some like girls who look ethnically ambiguous like me. Like that's my term in the industry.
Uh-huh.
But overall, you could look very different. They could bring in, let's say there's a barista role. I have a friend who's Asian who went in for this role. And then the girl who got it was another friend of mine who's Black. Okay. So, they call in many different people sometimes for the same role.
So now I'm going to jump to those times when you do get the call, you do get the part. Being on set and being in that process, what's that like?
It's the best feeling ever. Oh my God.
Hold up. What people cannot see is how your face just went from like normal face to like glowing smile that covers half your face.
I have to tell you, there's been times I'm on set and I say the same line. I remember for Blue Bloods, my line was, "What did he do?" That was it. It was, "What did he do?" I said, "What did he do?" maybe 65 times. And we did it from multiple angles. They had multiple characters. God. You had to hear it. I literally would just say the same line over and over again over the course of like 3 hours or something. I left that day giddy. I was like, this is so great. I was like, I'm meant to be doing this. Now I'm meant to be, hopefully, I'm meant to be saying more than one line too. But there's this element of like being on set is so amazing. You're in this collaborative environment. Everyone's working towards the same goal. There's cameras flying all around. Mm-hmm. There's hair and makeup people just like touching you, and it's so cool.
I bet.
Do you have any interest in being any other part of that machine? Or that organism? It doesn't even sound like a machine. It sounds like it's its own whole like organism that's happening, and each role is essential and moving and bringing life to this. And so in all of that, why the actor?
I like the performative part of it in the storytelling. I like connecting with people, in this way where you're talking to someone, you're listening to them, you're having authentic responses in a different circumstances than your own. That part's really cool. It also feels very alive to be in it. Like as soon as they say action and you're like, you feel like, this is happening. We're doing it. It's like running a race.
Yeah.
So I would want to do other aspects. I've done a little producing before. I've definitely produced the podcast. So I know I can do that type of role. Mm-hmm. Eventually down the line, I'd like to direct. It would have to be a project I have a full vision for already and be passionate about. So those are the two roles that I'd be interested in. I've done production assistant stuff on sets too. It's basically just like you just do all the bitch work.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll reference the episode that is running right now where we interviewed 3 20-somethings. And Maddie, she's finished college in film and theater. She just got back on as a production assistant for a show in Chicago that's being run. And her job is she's a COVID officer.
COVID compliant.
On set. We talked about it just not that long ago about how it just feels cool to be on the set, right? Like she's going to be tomorrow at some country club outside of Chicago, and then they're traveling to a police station where they're going to use a cell.
How cool.
Yeah. And it sounds very cool.
And they make things out of nothing. Like I once was in a jail cell, and I don't remember what they used exactly, but it was not a jail. Like we didn't go into a jail. They had to like create bars, and they put them in front of a place with like a stone background, and I just had to pretend I was in jail, and they made it look like a jail cell. So I'm like, that's so cool. Like it's also really inspiring to see all these people so good at what they do. Like I've seen makeup artists and nail, people who are like just amazing at what they do. And then you see the gaffer and the lighting guy, and they're just at the top of their field for what they do. And all these people are coming together for one purpose.
Yeah.
So awesome.
So I keep going back to this vision of an organism. So it's like you're standing there and you're getting to see the heart pumping and the lungs breathing and the liver livering and whatever else is happening.
Livering?
I don't know. What does the liver do? Cleans your shit.
It livers.
It livers. And you're seeing it all happening and how it all kind of flow. So not only is there your flow in that creative space of embodying this character and telling this story, but feeling the flow of the set itself.
Yeah, it's like magic a little. It really is. There is this magical thing of like, we get to do this, don't we?
What fun. I mean, I remember, and this is going back 20, I don't know, whatever time, my wife and I, we were in downtown Chicago and it was wintertime and it's like, oh my God, the first snow. And we thought, oh, this is beautiful. We walked around and we realized when we turned the corner that it wasn't the first snow. They were shooting a scene for Curly Sue. It was fake snow. But for a minute we had that, this is magic. And then we sat and watched them shoot what was a 12-second part of this movie. And we were there for like 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they weren't even done by the time we left. And we weren't there when they started. It is this amazing process. And I'm sure to be part of it is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me think, I have a friend and he just signed up to be an extra. And he's blown away at how many extra parts he gets because he's a middle-aged dude.
That's important.
Just an average dude.
Older, and there's not that many because most people kind of entering into the acting field are youngish and they don't fit that bill. So he's getting all these parts. So that might be I go. I might do that someday.
No, it's such a fun job. I mean, there's a lot of waiting around, but I mean, I know friends because I used to do extra work in the beginning too. It's a great way to like get an idea for how things work.
Mm-hmm.
I remember there's a friend of mine. She would, so basically there's a lot of downtime as an extra. You go in, you do your thing sometimes for a while, and you just sit around in the green room waiting for them to complete it or finish or start a scene. And she would do other work while waiting to shoot. And so she would get paid twice for the same hour or 5 hours. So she would do her own work, get paid for it, but she was also getting paid as an extra even while she's like doing this downtime thing. I was like, she knows what she's doing.
As you would imagine, there's this whole industry with countless jobs to be done, like location scout, props and scenery, makeup, etc. All honest jobs with as much potential to earn a livable wage as the next. And soon, we're going to knuckle down, and I'm going to tease you by saying that there's a very good chance that you've seen at least part of Michelle on your screen before. So definitely cool to hear about all that. And I'm not gonna lie, and you're gonna be self-conscious of it maybe now, but I've been looking at your hands.
Oh, you mean these?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because you do hand modeling.
I do.
Yeah.
I do a lot of hand modeling.
Wait, are your hands insured like J-Lo's ass is insured?
No way. No, I've done a series of, I mean, you saw my hand modeling reel, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Specifically, I've done a lot for Samsung. I did like 10 commercials and videos for them. It was a lot of like just holding onto the phone.
As she holds up her apple.
Yeah, I know. But there's a lot of like touching the like phone, and it's very interesting because all the phones don't work. The prototypes that you're using new phones that are going to be coming out on the set. So you have to kind of pretend. So they'll be like, okay, I want you to touch the top right, and then I want you to touch the bottom left, and I want you to scroll on the third scroll, press the bottom button. Like it's a whole thing, and I have to do it exactly right. And then in post, they put in all the stuff I pretended to touch.
That's interesting. Who'd have thunk that?
Yeah.
So I have so many questions. Did you always know you had exquisite hands, and what makes exquisite hands? Or were you discovered, like Tyra Banks was discovered on an airplane with someone like, oh, look at her open her can of Pepsi on the airplane?
Guys, I wish it was that glamorous. First of all, I had no idea that my hands were just golden hands, right? So I didn't know. I went to an audition. I remember the casting director who I met said, if you ever get called in for any commercial, you should get a manicure, because they often ask you to show your hands. Even if they're just because they need to know if you have any like scars or tattoos or anything like that, though they cover that up too. And then for the actual audition, they put the camera just on my hands and they would tell me what to do and I'd play around with it. No idea if I did well or not, because I have no idea what they're looking for. And then I got it and it was like a series of stuff. It was like a long booking. I was like, this is fantastic. And I would just show up, guys, this is amazing. So they had wardrobe and hair and makeup, but just for hands and arms.
This is fantastic.
So some people would only wear sleeves and it would be like held up with clothespins. And other people, I think mostly this is what happened to me, they give you a blouse just so that they have something specific for your hand. Then they had manicurists who did like crazy nail stuff to you depending on the role that you had. Oh, and then they'd have like a makeup person like draw fake tattoos on your hands.
Really? They needed to send the message that you were hip and tattooed.
Well, so if that's the character, so they would give you characters even if they only saw your hands. So there was one girl, I like this story. There was one girl who was like super goth, like the whole goth thing going on. But her hands were small and dainty. So she came in fully goth because you can come in your pajamas. They gave her sleeves that were like puffy, poofy sleeves. They gave her like beautiful, dainty pink nails. And so you saw her and she's walking around like super goth, super edgy and cool. But her hands were super dainty and Barbie-like.
Oh my God.
Because she was the Barbie girl hand or something like that. So
That's
they give you parts. They give you like, this is the Hispanic 20-something-year-old who has a little cool arrow tattoo.
So how did you even know to go to a hand model audition?
That was my manager.
Like, what the fuck? Why not? I don't know what your hands look like, but
pretty much.
Let's go see. Maybe your hands are golden. Who knows?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. There was no checking in. Like, do you think you'd want to do? It was like, you got this audition. I submitted you for it already.
Is hand modeling the gateway to foot modeling?
No, I don't want to. I can't my feet, guys, as great as my hands are, my feet are just fine. But there is a division of modeling called parts modeling. I never fully got into it, but you can go to specific agencies. They specifically deal with parts modeling. So you could be a foot model, you could be a hand model, you could be a neck model, you could be like, I don't know how many more there are. You could be a leg model. I'm sure that's one too.
Really? Huh. Go figure. Like, how many different things to do in this giant organism, this machine, and this machine being the things that put out TV and movies and stuff like that. But when anything that shows up on a screen, that's all part of that same organism.
Yeah. I think I remember Friends had an episode. Didn't like Joey play someone's butt or something? Like there was like a butt model, like he was like a butt double. I think that was like a joke.
God.
There definitely is butt doubles. There's definitely like doubles for all of that stuff too. So if the actor doesn't want to show their something or another. But you know what? You're going to see commercials differently now. So watch commercials and you're like, wait, there's no person in this commercial. There's a hand. And then you hear a voiceover, not of that actor, completely different audition, completely different thing.
Yeah. We interviewed a person, Beverly Felt. She had been a voiceover artist since she was like 15. She went from there to creating this thing called Workplace Interactors, where she works with businesses and she brings in a group of actors to kind of do training with them. Again, it's adapting and doing things within her skill set. So it sounds like what you're doing is that.
So I do something similar too. So I do something similar. I work for a company. There's a couple actors in the company. It's run by a former actor. And we do professional development workshops by using acting skills and improv. So we'll teach public speaking, we'll teach networking, we'll teach on-camera presence, we'll teach empowerment and confidence.
Yeah.
From what I understand of actors, they're very perceptive. They look at the smallest details in the way people do things, but just kind of looking at how somebody carries themselves or how they say one thing or they act in a certain way. And those things just get kind of absorbed.
Yeah, you have to be very observant as an actor because think about it, like if I'm putting a character together and the character has like a very low status in life, just feels really awful about themselves. You think to yourself, how does that person carry themselves? Because it's not going to carry it the same way I would, or it's not going to carry it. Like if I think of myself with a certain level of confidence or self-worth, that person's going to they're going to sit differently than I am. They're going to carry themselves differently than I am. So you start to observe other people and you go, well, how are they carrying themselves? How are they sitting? Do they think highly of themselves? Are they doing anything that shows sort of like a wall or something defensive? So what kind of things do we do when we're defensive, right? Are we doing this? Are we doing a lot of this? Are we doing a lot of this? We do them all unconsciously, but actors have to observe that so they can mimic that later.
Yeah. I'm going to have to edit this in. She put her hand to her mouth. You put her hand down. She shrugged a little bit. Okay. Now I can just weave that.
Yeah. I could describe it out loud. There's like things you do that like you cross your arms, you put your, a lot of people put their hands over their mouths to kind of cover something that they're feeling embarrassed about saying. You can slump over. A lot of people slump over with their shoulders when they're feeling insecure, they're defensive, or they're feeling low.
Yeah.
Your shoulders spread back. That's what, a sign of confidence, a sign of taking up space and feeling strong about that.
Interesting. More good information about acting, various jobs, and opportunities. And Michelle's adapting to stay active in and around her craft. In a bit, we're going to learn about Michelle's podcast, Mentors on the Mic, which is her being creative and using the downtime that COVID has forced on her and her industry. Her podcast is well within her wheelhouse, and although it's different from the dream she sculpted as a child, everything that Michelle shares is consistent with that dream and lands in the category of creative and joyful. But first, large crustaceans. Because you've been in some pretty cool things. I do want to ask about Queen Crab.
Oh, yes. So, such a great film, shot in Pennsylvania. This really great director who does all these crazy sci-fi stuff. So he created a fake crab arm that was really big, right? Yeah. And I would interact with the crab arm, and then he would add the rest of the crab in post. I think it's on YouTube somewhere, to be really honest. It's on Amazon. It's a crazy movie, but it's like a sci-fi, like a good sci-fi B-rated film. I saw it with a bunch of friends, and they were like, surprisingly, it was really good. But it's a cute film. If you're high, it's a really good film.
So when you see the final product or the finished product, or you see yourself on screen, what is that like for you?
So in the beginning, it was a little weird. Definitely cringy. Definitely like you feel like, oh God, like that's what I look like. Now I don't mind watching myself. I don't know if you feel the same way about editing your podcast. It's like, do you feel weird about hearing yourself? It's a similar mentality.
I do trainings, and we were talking about how many times people say right, or, the ums and stuff like that. And I said, and I was just telling her, like, when I go to edit myself, I am so aware of how many stupid things I say.
Yeah.
Steve does all the editing. I just like sit here and like act ridiculous and
look pretty.
Well, nobody needs to know that. I mean, I could be picking my nose for all anybody knows. Steve, did you catch my joke that I'm now going to point out to you? My nose, for all anybody knows.
Very good.
Earlier this week, Steve made a dad joke and we glossed over it, and he made a point of having us come and circle back to it. So,
It was a good one. I forget what it was.
That's funny.
So tell us about the podcast. That is fun stuff and cool things, and you're getting some cool people in to talk with. And where did that come from?
A couple years ago, I helped a couple of friends of mine in the industry create their own podcast, and it's doing really, really well. And I'd always wanted to do one for myself, but I had no idea what to do it on. I didn't feel like I was an expert on anything. I didn't feel like I had something strong I wanted to say. Lack of confidence, I'm sure it was part of it. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, oh, I have the time now. I can't just keep pushing this off. I actually have time to work on this. And I wanted something of my own that I could do at home, that I could be creative, that I have agency over. And I did some research. I read a book. I talked to friends. I did stuff online. And finally, I was like, I have to start this. If I don't start this, then I'm just going to keep being in this limbo zone. So the idea came from, I started doing events for the college I went to years ago, Brandeis University. And I started doing panels for them where I'd moderate and create these panels of really cool alumni in the entertainment industry. It was all the people I wished that I could talk to, but never really had a reason to call them. I think I might have called some of them when I graduated. But all I knew what to say was, I'm an actor. Do you have any way you can help me? Like, there was nothing really that most of them wanted or could do. But now I had a different ask. I was like, can you be on this panel? Like, and they'd say yes, and I would do it. And I was like, this is great. And then I thought I wanted to create something I could give to more than just Brandeis. So I asked most of them to be on the podcast. And it was just this factor of just finding these really cool people who are now all at home, who I could just talk to. And I've had like major TV directors, I've had executive producers, I've had people at Netflix, I've had a vice president of a network, Cartoon Network, entertainment reporters for the Hollywood Reporter. I've had different people from different parts of the industry that I just think are super interesting and have valuable advice. And they've given me some of their time. It's been really, really cool.
And what I've heard of it, and I've heard one or two of them, and it's fun. Just to hear these different angles and different things. And I mean, just those little tidbits of information that you just don't think about.
Yeah.
It makes sense, but it's like, oh yeah. And that's pretty cool.
It really sounds like some of those little tidbits come from people seeing an opportunity and pursuing it.
Yeah. I say it in my trailer, everyone used to tell me, you should be getting a mentor, Michelle. Like you should have, I have a really good friend of mine who kicks ass. She has 6 mentors.
What?
I know. Anytime she has an issue at work or wants to like ask for more money or wants to change jobs or wants to X, Y, and Z, she has 6 mentors in the industry who are much higher than her who can give her advice. And I was like, how do you do it? How do you do it? How do you acquire them?
Right.
It's one thing just to meet them and be like, hey, can you help me? And then leave. How do you follow up with them and have them be someone who cares about your career? And so that's really the idea of the podcast.
Right.
It's the idea of like, how do you meet these people, stay in touch with them, learn about them? What questions do you ask that it's not just like, I need from you? How do you develop a relationship with a mentor and then keep going?
Right, which is I think really important and really helpful. And I think even just people that are listening to like your podcast, right? They're getting an in-depth understanding. They're getting something that they wouldn't get from just the quick interview somewhere else.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I think it's really cool. And I think it speaks to like what Catherine was saying too. And it's all of this adapting, right? This how do we find a way to create a lifestyle that fosters our creativity?
Yeah, I think for so long I felt like I could only be one thing, especially as an actor. I'm like, acting is so hard. Unless I go at it 100%, I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm not going to be able to do well. I have to do this one thing well. Everything else I have to put on the side. I really felt that way. It was just wrong. I think that you should explore different creative stuff that interests you. You should have multiple hats on if you want to, as long as you want to, as long as you love it. But you shouldn't limit yourself, because doing other things will only enhance the thing you want to do anyway. You become a more full person. I think I'm a better actor because I now have this podcast.
Yeah, I feel like the hats inform and push each other in ways that a solo hat couldn't do.
Absolutely.
That's really cool. I think that's a really good piece of advice for people too. Because I've heard people say, pick that one thing and you try to do it well. And they think that if you do something else, you're somehow straying from your mission. But what you're saying is no, not. In fact, you're not. You're enhancing that mission because you're giving yourself more information. You're giving yourself more colors for that role.
Yeah, all of that. And I would even add to it and say, it also feeds your soul in a different way. I think so long as an actor, my issue was that I felt so much joy with one thing. I almost felt like I needed it so much. I needed that success, or that I needed to book that role, because how else am I going to have that joy?
Yeah.
And it was so much on one thing. And we already talked about how hard it is to get that one thing anyway. So if you feel so desperate for that one role because that's what gives you joy, I'm sorry, that's just too much pressure on that one audition, first. And second, like, you need to get your joy other places, or else you're not going to probably show up in the right energy for what you want anyway. You know?
Yeah.
Multiple joys.
Multiple joys.
A cornucopia of joy.
A plethora of joys.
I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to bring up. There's anything else, Catherine, you wanted to?
Yeah, no, anything else you've got?
Anything to look forward to? Anything coming up that we should be keeping our eye out for?
So yeah, last week I just put out my final episode of the podcast for the first season. So ending season 1, and I'm going to be putting out bonus episodes, which are cool. So little tidbit things that I think are interesting about mentors or about things I've learned, patterns I've seen over the course of this season, you know, a little bit more about me, because I feel like I've just been highlighting everybody else, and I get that a lot. Like, what about your career?
So I guess the question I would have, took me a minute to find it. With COVID and being an actor, like, you haven't been able to work. So you've adapted by doing the podcast. But is there anything that you've done to stay connected to your art as an actor?
It's a really good question. 3 or 4 weeks ago, for 5 days, I challenged people in my network, people who have never done acting or who have acted and just haven't been able to do it quite as much. And I gave them like a list of resources. And I said, just challenge yourself to do a minimum of 15 minutes a day where you're just happy and enjoy about acting. So I might do that again. But I think that really helped. It was just this idea of like, what kind of exercises can I do that just make me feel good about acting again?
Yeah.
And so I picked up exercises I hadn't done since I was a kid. Like, I did some stuff on Instagram Live with a friend of mine where we just pretended I was a guest on a talk show. So it was really fun. I'm going to probably do it again.
I love it. I love that idea of let's remind ourselves of the joy of our craft.
Yeah, I love it. Because I do think that performers who require an audience have really struggled.
Yeah.
So anything you've got, share it with the people.
Michelle, it was so fun having you on.
Oh, thanks.
It's really cool to hear people being creative and adaptive and doing all sorts of things, and to hear all those little cool things that happen behind the scenes that we don't think of.
Thank you. And you guys are so wonderful. It's such a pleasure. I mean, you guys are just so easy to talk to.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Thank
I hope so. It's our
Yeah.
fucking jobs that we get paid for.
Stuff like that.
Stay here and do nothing. I will be your blank slate. Tell me about your mother. How she never loved you.
Right. That's what us therapists do.
That is what we do.
I just yell at people.
You just yell at people.
Snap them with a ruler. That's because that's good therapy.
That's good. Great therapy.
Oh, yeah.
It was lovely to meet you.
It's lovely to meet you guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Michelle.
Bye, guys. Have a great night.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Such an informative and fun discussion with Michelle Simone Miller, who is a great example of being an artist who's working it out. She may become an A-list celebrity, which of course would be dreamy. Or she may continue to find her way acting and engaging in all sorts of other creative joys, which is also pretty dreamy. Check out her website at www.michellesimonemiller.com and her podcast, Mentors on the Mic, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find her all over social media. We'll include her addresses in the Kites and Strings episode description and on our website. Please remember that the Kites and Strings website is www.kitesandstrings.com, and talk about us with your friends. Please rate us wherever you podcast, because that really helps too. And also drop an idea, a comment, or whatever via email at kitesandstringspodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. The Kites and Strings theme music is by Harrison Amir. Other original music is by Purple Planet Music at purpleplanet.com. Today's episode was produced and edited by me, Steve Plume, at Turning Stones Counseling, Inc. Be safe.